full blast, and I could hear them. They'd say Pearl Harbor was bombed, and then I got back to the house and I told them, and they run and turned the radio on. That was December 7th, and so then Eldon and sister and their daughter come back, and they had to stay over one night because there was blackout in St. Louis. So we got back there and we went to the Christmas party, and Eldon had they'd come to the Christmas parties. And then I don't know how come we decided to, well, December the 20th, 1941, when we got married.
And we have a picture of Eldon and you. And how old were you at the time, and how old was he? How old were you when you got married?
Almost 19.
Okay, so do you want to show us your dress?
Yeah.
Is this what you wore at the wedding?
Yeah.
This is your wedding picture. Okay.
So I wore that December the 20th, 1941.
Okay. Tell us about your wedding.
Well, I wrote this all down for Larkin, my grandson that just got married. And he wanted to know about my wedding day and how many people we had. But we was married by a minister at the courthouse, and there was 8 of us at our wedding. And I don't know why somebody else, I don't know why we didn't, Eldon just did it his way, or I guess I just followed along with him. The county clerk and that minister and my cousin, Eldon's cousin, and my sister-in-law's brother, and then 2 more people. But anyway, that's how many though. So this, I guess I'll just keep tradition up. We got hamburgers for our wedding evening. He went and bought hamburgers, and I think it's about 20 cents a piece. And so we just ate, and everybody went their different ways. And we went to he had told his brother and wife he lived with them a lot. That's where he chose to go. That we went and stayed all night. My grandpa Smith died that night. They found us the next morning. You know, they knew where we was at. So they come up, a cousin come up and told us. So we took off, got back to the house. Well, Dad and his aunts, so they had already took off to Texas, to where Grandpa Smith, where they lived when he died. And he died with a heart attack. Then this went real quick, and Grandma Smith did the same thing. She was walking the streets with some of the kids, and the next morning she passed away. But it was about, I don't know how long she lived after he died. But anyway, he did, they both died with heart attacks. And, but Dad had went to them, went with them to the funeral. And then we all went, we was back there for this, it was in Christmas time. And Grandma, they called us and told us that they didn't have no telephone. They called somebody and they come out to the farm out where we lived out in the country to tell us that Grandma had passed away. And then Eldon took Mother and Dad, and Jean was about 4-year-old, I think. I've got a picture, I don't have any here, of him standing by that. When Grandma was by herself, they'd all go to church on Sunday. They'd get together and says, okay, we're going to Ma's, they called her. Said, bring whatever you want. We're going to Ma's for dinner, for lunch, after church. That's what they did till she passed away.
Describe your trip to California.
Oh, we got married. We left, well, we had our first Christmas together with my folks and Eldon's sister and family. So we had Christmas there, and then we went to someplace up in where Travis, my brother-in-law's lived. So we left day after Christmas, and we went up there and stayed all night at Bristow. And so we left early the next morning, and it started snowing. So we was on the road 5 days on that, and it was snow, until we got to Kingman, Arizona. But we seen them. They lived. We stayed all night in just little log cabins, and there's snow on the ground. I don't know what they built a fire with, but they went out and got a dishpan full of ice or snow, and put it on. Got it melted that snow, and the men shaved. Then we got up and left again. But we sure was glad to see all when we got run out of the snow. So we came to Cayucas, California, our first trip, when we got into California. Then we stayed there and then left. We went to Cayucas and then stayed there a little while and went to Porterville. And that was our first year. I think we lived in 6 different places in Porterville. But Eldon never was out of a job. He worked till he got a good job doing Peter Kiewit. You know this? He helped build this canal that went down through the. And we left that and went to South Dakota, Hot Springs. Stayed there a little over a year. That was Gene's first big snow. They said it's going to snow. So Eldon and I walked down the hill and got us a supply of groceries. Went back home the next morning. I mean, we couldn't get out. But we lived up on a hill, and we stayed there. He worked on the Angostura Dam with some of the people from California. They had us a place already rented, a big hospital. They turned it into rentals, built. I don't know how many there was. They all stayed there, and they had our place ready. And we had what stuff we had. We had to buy some stuff, but when we got there, they was ready to go fishing. So a lot of times in the evening, the men and get off at work, or the women, we'd meet them down and go fishing.
What work did you do in California?
What did I do?
What work did you do?
Oh, I went along with Eldon when they first started. He picked oranges, and sold much a box. I think it was about $6 for one. I mean, I don't know. I can't remember now, but it wasn't much. But Eldon always had something to do. He worked. We went to work at different things till he got his. I went with him to San Jose, and I cut apricots. Just cut them and lay them out on a tray. I think I made 36 cents that day.
So then you became a mom. Tell us about becoming a mother.
Well, we moved to Rancho Sespe, and we sold out and moved down there, and Eldon got a job picking oranges. But the day that I was ready to go to the hospital, I went across the street and told this woman, I said, "Go get Eldon. I think I'm going to have this baby." I told her what had happened. She says, "Get in the house, kid." And I went back, and boy, he was there more time I got back in the house. He said, "I'm not changing clothes." I said, "Yes, you are. You're not going up there with your old work clothes on." So he listened to me and he changed clothes. We got out on the road going into Santa Paula. There's a convoy going down that way. Eldon just darted in and out till we got to the hospital. But that was around noon and he wasn't born until 4 or something, so we had plenty of time.
So tell us about your baby.
Well, then he was to me, well, you can look at that picture. He was a beautiful baby. And we stayed in the hospital 10 days. Didn't have my feet on the floor. But the nurses, he was the only little boy. The rest of them was all girls. And it was a 10-bed hospital. And if he got cranky, the nurses take him to the stand, up at the nursing stand, and hold him. I think they just wanted to do that because he was a good little baby.
Tell us about Gene growing up.
Well, he was really a pleasure to us. I thought he's always been a good son. Maybe sometimes, but I never looked at I know a few times he's just like a brother that I had, that he went places I didn't know where he is at a lot of times. Well, most of the time I knew where Gene was. He went to college in Santa Barbara, and then he joined the Peace Corps, and that was the most saddest day I ever spent. When we took him to get on the plane. He went to New Jersey and stayed there a few days, and then he went to India and stayed 2 years. Yeah, that's right, 2 years. But I sure was glad we met him when he came in down at the airport out here, and we was glad to have him back home with us.
What was your proudest moment as a parent?
Oh, I don't know. There's so many of them. I just he'd always say, he'd maybe give me a hug and say, "Mom, I love you that much." And then if he got mad at me, "I just love you this much, Mom."
Of all the things you learned from your parents, what do you feel was the most valuable?
Well, they was a happy family, and they kept us, on the right track, and they wanted all their kids. There are 5 of them, and they wanted to do all they could for their kids, and they was just super parents. And
In talking about Eldon, what made him such a special husband?
well, he was whatever. I could just say I'd like to have so. He'd go buy it. And then when it was so much fun for him with those 2, Larkin and Benji, Gene and Wendy's 2 boys. That made us happy to have them. And they'd come up to our house and stay, and we seen them grow up, and they did so many things. And they'd build that table right there was in our kitchen in the McFarland, and they'd make a fort out of that, him and them 2 boys. But I said, "I'm not sleeping under that table. There wasn't not room for me anyway." They had feather bed. It's right in there, a feather bed, and them kids get in there. And Larkin got up one morning. I'm not sleeping under that bed anymore because I bumped my head. I'm getting too tall. This was Jean, and we all went back while Wendy was gone. Us, Jean and I and the two boys. And this there was at Kennedy's place in Oklahoma. So we all went to that. We all went through that.
Tell us about being a grandparent.
Oh, I guess that was the biggest thrill too of our. That they come in and told me that we was grandparents. We just had so much fun with them. They stayed with us, and Eldon had retired, and they Gene had his office in Delano. We lived in McFarland for 40 years, and so then whatever those kids like wanted to do, but just different things they'd think of, and we tried to. I cooked for them a lot. Gene found that potato cutter to make those scallop potatoes. You know, you cut them one way and turn them the other, and they made them checkety. Gene found that. Said, "Look at what I found." I said, "You better not throw that away." I had some next door neighbors, and they all got sick. I think they had I don't know. They had something. Anyway, they were sick. I went and asked them what they wanted. "Will you make us some of those potatoes?" I fixed a big bowl about that big, about that deep, fixed it full. They started in on them. But I ordered this potato cutter, and Gene found it, and I said, "You better keep it." So he said, "I am." I fixed it for her. And one day Ellen says, "Why haven't you fixed Benji and Larkin any of those potatoes?" I said, "I don't know." But then I fixed them for them too.
We've had some pretty special birthdays. You want to talk about where you went for your 75th?
Went to Hawaii.
You want to see a picture?
My sister and my aunt come. Well, my brother-in-law he didn't go with us. That's three of us. And my niece says, "Boy, it'll never be the same over there after you three go over there stay a week." But we had so much fun, and we went and seen Don Ho, had dinner with him, and then we went to a lot of. We walked down to that Don Ho's dinner, and we come back. And some guy caught us, just stepped in front of us and made us a picture with, he put some, what kind of birds was them? Anyway, got a picture of us three with them birds sitting on our head.